Our protagonist Itami is a 33-year-old man, known as an otaku because he's a pro at video games. Everything he does in life is just to pursue his hobby and play video games day and night, basically a failure, in short. One day, Itami is on public transport, playing video games as usual, completely relaxed, imagining himself inside the game, surrounded by monsters that he fights off, fully immersed in his own world. That is, until his game suddenly dies because the battery runs out, and he loses, leaving Itami frustrated. Afterward, he arrives at his destination, Akihabara, because there's an important annual video game event happening. Itami hypes himself up, talking to himself, until suddenly he bumps into a pole that says, "Watch out," but of course he crashes into it anyway. Itami falls to the ground and starts hallucinating about characters from his game, fairies and fantasy cats, until someone comes over to help him up. When this person sees the game Itami is playing, he says that he loves that game too. Itami is thrilled to meet someone like him who enjoys the game. Suddenly, a gigantic portal appears in Akihabara, and people stand around it, puzzled, unsure of what it is or how it appeared. And in the midst of their astonishment, creatures beyond imagination emerge from the portal, monsters, humanoid beings, and a group of knights led by their commander. Strangely, all these creatures resemble the characters from Itami's game. The monsters and knights begin slaughtering people, causing chaos and terror throughout the district. As soon as Itami notices what's happening, his first thought isn't to run. He thinks about how the gaming event might get cancelled because of the monsters. So, he immediately rushes in to fight the monsters and knights to save the event from being called off. Not only that, he goes to the police and orders them to move everyone into the government palace to protect them, becoming a hero in the eyes of everyone, like in the movies. The police follow his instructions, guiding people inside the palace and surrounding the area with police cars. The military intervenes, organizes itself, and heads out to fight the monsters and knights. They manage to take them down almost completely, as the knights are old-school warriors, only armed with swords. Inside the palace, a little girl stands alone without her parents, crying. Itami sees her, approaches to comfort her, and tells her he will help her find her parents. He asks her to trust him, and reassured, the girl goes with him. A few days after the incident, Itami is standing, being honored for his bravery. The military commander is there, giving a speech, but all Itami can think about is the gaming event that got cancelled. He's deeply affected by it, caring little about the honor, or the fact that he's now a lieutenant in the army. Newspapers and magazines start writing about him, and he even appears on TV. But Itami grows more and more irritated by all the attention because he never wanted to be a lieutenant or have responsibilities. All he ever wanted was to play games, and he can't believe he now has a completely different life. The next day, Itami goes to the army for training as a soldier. A man approaches him and starts running alongside him, chatting. Turns out this man is the same person who helped Itami when he bumped into the pole. His name is Kurata, and he greatly admires Itami and his courage. He keeps talking until Itami gets a headache and tells him to shut up. Later, they go for lunch since it's time to eat. Kurata asks Itami about his ambitions and accomplishments, but he's shocked when Itami replies that he has no ambitions and never cared about achieving everything he has now. The only thing he was looking forward to was the gaming event. Kurata tells him that he managed to attend the event before it got cancelled and collected a lot of stuff. Itami is overjoyed, hugging Kurata and calling him his best friend. But Kurata tries to push him away because Itami is practically strangling him, not hugging him. Afterward, Itami and Kurata go to collect their new army uniforms. Itami is surprised by the design, and another soldier explains that they changed it because the army has budget cuts. Itami is confused and asks why there's a budget cut in the first place. The soldier explains that there might be another war, or rather, another confrontation with the creatures that came through the portal. Itami gets really upset because he feels this isn't his place and he doesn't want to fight or kill anyone, except in games. The next day, Prime Minister Hujo gives a public speech, saying that the government has decided to hold the person responsible for the destruction accountable. Therefore, they've decided to occupy the lands beyond the portal and consider them part of Japan. He also says they can't destroy the portal because they can't guarantee that it won't just reappear elsewhere in Japan, which would leave them back at square one. Itami listens to the Prime Minister's speech and feels disappointed because he doesn't want to fight. His only concern is getting some time off after the war so he can attend the winter gaming event. The next day, the whole world starts talking about what's happening in Japan. Even the President of the United States gives a lengthy speech, inserting himself into the matter, claiming how much he's helping Japan and always standing by their side. Of course, none of what he says is true. He clearly has some other hidden agenda that no one knows about yet. After 3 months of chaos and numerous events, a new prime minister replaces Hujo and gives a speech in front of the army and the public. He talks about the victims and the soldiers who lost their lives. Itami stands with the other soldiers, feeling emotional. Suddenly, he sees the little girl he helped at the beginning, crying for her father, which deeply saddens him and makes him feel responsible. The army commander, whose name is Zama, addresses all the soldiers, telling them to prepare because they're going to enter the portal. Indeed, the soldiers, tanks, and planes all enter and prepare to set up camp inside. A few days later, Duke Khosrow goes to Emperor Molt, the ruler of the empire beyond the gate, and tells him that they've lost about 60% of the empire's army that entered the gate, which numbered in the hundreds of thousands, and that if they keep going like this, they'll lose all their strength against the enemy army. But the emperor doesn't care much about what Khosrow said because he's thinking about another problem: the kingdoms allied with the empire. They might take advantage of the situation and attack the empire, not to mention the people who might revolt against him if he surrenders to the Japanese army. Molt thinks for a moment, then orders messengers to be sent to all the kingdoms allied with the empire to summon them, as he has a plan to unite all their armies together and launch an attack on the Japanese army. When Khosrow hears Molt's plan, he realizes that the emperor isn't thinking about the people or the empire. He's only thinking about himself and is scared of losing his rule. But Khosrow can't do anything about it. Then we shift to a commander of one of the allied kingdoms named Duran, who is with a group of his soldiers watching over Arnest Hill, where the gate is and which is surrounded by Japanese military camps. One of his soldiers comes to him and informs him about the emperor's message. So Duran quickly heads to the meeting place the emperor has designated. But when he arrives, he's surprised to find all the commanders of the other kingdoms present, except for Emperor Molt, which confuses him. Duran asks them why the emperor isn't there, and one of them says that the emperor is busy and has gone to fight the enemy at Arnest Hill. Duran feels something is wrong because when he was there was no indication that a battle would take place. After the meeting, the commanders agree to fight the Japanese army in a few days, and everyone begins to prepare their troops. A few days later, all the armies are ready and head toward Arnest Hill to fight the Japanese army. A soldier reports all developments to Commander Duran, and Duran asks about the Empire's army. He's shocked to learn that there isn't a single Imperial soldier present. Then, the army from a kingdom called Algona reaches the hill with a few other armies from different kingdoms. But as soon as they arrive, they are attacked by tanks, which wipe them out in seconds. When Duran reaches the hill, he finds it littered with the bodies of knights, and he becomes terrified of the enemy's strength. He orders the remaining troops to retreat until they can come up with a plan. Later, the commanders, including Duran, gather to think of a solution after losing more than 10,000 soldiers. Most of them want to retreat, but Duran tells them no. They must continue to fight so that if they die with honor. He also tells them that at dawn, the moon will be gone, and the enemy will have difficulty seeing, making it the perfect time to strike and settle the battle. At dawn, all the armies, including Duran's, head toward Arnest Hill, believing that the enemy won't see them in the darkness. But as soon as they arrive, they are attacked by tanks, just like the previous armies. Duran, however, refuses to retreat and insists on continuing the fight. He rides his horse toward the gate, but falls off after crashing into the Japanese army's fence. When he gets up, he sees his entire army being slaughtered, and he begins to laugh maniacally like a madman before he too is killed. The next day, Itami and Kurata arrive and see the state of the hill after the battle, finding it completely destroyed. Kurata tells Itami that they killed 120,000 soldiers, shocking Itami with the sheer number and leaving him deeply upset. Then we return to Emperor Molt, who, upon hearing that all the allied armies were wiped out, feels relieved and happy. He's comforted by the fact that now none of the allied kingdoms will take advantage of the situation and attack the empire. He orders his aide to burn all the lands between Arnest and the empire, poison all the water, and take all the food to put the enemy, the Japanese army, in a tough spot and prevent them from reaching the empire. It's a strategy they call scorched earth policy. While Molt is talking with his aide, his daughter Pina enters, and it's clear that she has a stronger personality than the emperor himself. She's upset by what's happening and asks her father about his plan and how he intends to take back Arnest after the Allied armies were defeated. She doesn't yet know that this defeat was part of her father's plan. The Emperor's aide responds to her, saying that they'll take advantage of the defeat of the Allied armies because surely the enemy army won't be able to fight another battle right now. But Pina doesn't like this response and tells him that it's impossible to stop the enemy army, especially after seeing their strength. The Emperor tells her to monitor the enemy's army and all their movements to quiet her down and keep her busy. Pina is excited and agrees, then leaves, allowing her father to continue his conversation with his aide. Then we shift back to the real world, where the President of the United States is watching what's happening in Japan with the gate. It's clear that he's greedy for the lands and resources beyond the gate and is thinking of intervening himself to enter the gate and take control before Japan does. But his aide suggests that they shouldn't intervene just yet, as everyone expects Japan to lose, and after Japan is defeated, they can intervene. For now, they should just appear to be helping from afar. Then Itami goes to his commander because he's been summoned. But he regrets going because the commander assigns him to lead 6 reconnaissance missions to learn about the people in the region and build relationships with them. Itami tells him that he doesn't want to go and suggests that someone else take his place, but the commander refuses, so Itami is forced to accept. Itami arrives with the 6 teams in a village called Koda, but the people there are terrified of them and don't want to interact. Slowly, though, they begin to warm up, and it becomes clear that the villagers are just ordinary people. Itami asks an old man, the village chief, about another village nearby that he can visit with his team. The old man tells him about a village near the river, so Itami and his team head there. But when they arrive, they find the village burning, with dragons attacking and destroying everything. One of Itami's team members suggests they come back the next day after the fire has died down on its own. They do just that and return the next day to find the village completely destroyed and burnt. Itami and his team are visibly saddened by the sight of the dead villagers. Itami says they need to find the dragon's lair to take them down before they destroy more villages. While he's talking, Itami becomes thirsty and tries to get water from the well, but it's dry. When he shines a light down the well to check, he finds a girl who looks human but with long elf-like ears. She was unconscious, so Itami quickly went down into the well to rescue her, and as soon as he brought her out, he saw she was badly injured. He called for the team doctor to come and treat her. They took her into a tent, and the doctor started treating her while Itami and Kurata were outside, amazed to have seen an elf. They were very impressed by her, especially Kurata. Then a girl from the team interrupted them and told Itami that the elf was okay now and that they had managed to save her. Itami and Kurata were happy to hear that. The girl asked what they planned to do with the elf, whether they were going to leave her behind or take her with them. Itami thought for a moment and then told her they would take her with them as a war refugee until she fully recovered. After that, Itami and the team returned to their base at Arnest Hill, but on their way back, they passed through Koda village again. Itami approached the old man and told him about the dragon that had burned down the village, showing him a picture. The old man was shocked and terrified to learn that fire dragons were responsible. Itami promised the old man that he would try to find a solution to the dragons and protect the village. He also told him about the elf he had rescued and asked if they could keep her in the village and take care of her. But the old man refused, saying they couldn't take care of an elf, and that they all needed to leave the village anyway because once dragons start burning people, no one can stop them. Everyone must escape before it's their turn. He ordered the villagers to gather their belongings quickly, and they obeyed, starting to pack. There was a wizard in the village named Kato who was complaining to his apprentice, Lele, frustrated because he wanted to take all his magic books with him but couldn't due to how many there were. Lele told him to prioritize the important ones and that they needed to hurry to catch up with the rest of the village. Kato listened to her advice, took only the important books, and they both got into their cart. However, the horse struggled to pull the heavy load, so Lele used her magic to help the horse move. They continued for a while until they stopped due to a traffic jam, with a long line of people ahead. Kato asked one of the travelers about the cause of the jam, and the person explained that a cart had overturned ahead and people were trying to move it. Everyone waited until some of Itami's team arrived to organize the area. When Lele saw them, she was fascinated and curious about what they were doing or who they were. She got down from the cart, left Kato, and walked to where the overturned cart was. She found a little girl lying on the ground, so she went to check on her, but at the same time, a doctor from the military came over and said the girl had a concussion from the fall. Lele was impressed with the doctor. Suddenly, a horse came charging at Lele, aiming to attack her. A soldier quickly intervened, taking down the horse before it could hurt her. Lele was deeply impressed by the soldiers and their work. That night, a group of men gathered, discussing what was happening in Kota village. They looked like bandits or criminals. One of them spoke about his desire to gather all the rebels against the ruling regime and build an army to overthrow Emperor Molt and become the emperor himself. He was very pleased with the idea, dreaming as he spoke. But in the blink of an eye, someone appeared and took him out, shocking and terrifying everyone else present. It turned out that the one who did it was a beautiful girl named Rory. Though she looked beautiful, she began killing everyone around her one by one, finding immense pleasure in it. Rory was actually a reaper, and this was her job. After finishing, she casually walked away as if nothing had happened. The next day, the villagers were all walking behind the military carts for protection. Along the way, one of the village carts got stuck in the ground, and when they tried to move it, its wheel broke. Itami went over to the owner and told him he would have to leave the cart behind and keep walking, but the man refused because it held all his family's belongings. So Itami set the cart on fire, forcing the man to leave. The man and his family cried, and Itami felt terrible for them, but he couldn't do anything else. One of the girls from the team, named Eri, came over and asked Itami why he didn't just request a cart from their base to transport the family's belongings instead of burning them. Itami told her that they couldn't keep going back and forth in the area to avoid drawing the enemy's attention and causing more people to die. Eri admired him even more for his kind heart. They continued on their way, but Itami noticed the sky and the road were filled with crows and birds. When he looked through his binoculars, he saw Rory with all the birds around her and was captivated by her, especially since she looked exactly like a character he loved in his game. Rory was approaching them, and when she reached the cart, all the children and villagers ran to her, calling her the Oracle, showing that she held a high position among them. Rory asked the villagers about the soldiers, and they all praised the soldiers for how much they had helped them. Rory admired the cart that Itami was in and was also impressed with Itami himself. She asked if she could ride with them, and Itami agreed, letting her join them in the cart. They continued their journey, but after a while, the heat became unbearable. Itami stuck his head out of the cart to catch some air, but was startled when he saw a small dragon flying behind them. He was scared, but moments later, a much larger dragon appeared, chasing them. This time, Itami was terrified. He ordered everyone to be alert and prepare for a dragon attack. Suddenly, the dragon breathed fire, killing many people and burning the carts. People began running in fear while Itami and the soldiers tried to shoot the dragon, but it wasn't affected at all, as its skin was impervious to bullets. The noise of the screams and gunfire woke up the elf that Itami had rescued. When she saw the dragon, she quickly ran to Itami and told him to aim for its eye, but Itami didn't understand her language. She kept pointing to her eye until Itami got the message and ordered everyone to aim for the dragon's eye. When they all started shooting at its eye, the dragon began to retreat and weaken, but it wasn't enough to stop it. So Itami told one of the soldiers to fire a missile at the dragon's eye. Of course, it was very difficult to aim at the dragon's eye. The soldier tried, but from a distance, it was clear the shot was going to miss. That's when Rory intervened, using her power to change the missile's direction, guiding it straight into the dragon's eye. The missile exploded, and the dragon finally got scared and flew away. After it left, everyone looked around at the dead, feeling heartbroken. When night came, Itami and the soldiers buried all those who had died. Itami went to comfort a little girl grieving over her family's loss. Eri came over and asked him what they would do with the villagers. Itami told her that most of them had relatives in other villages they could go to, but there were others, especially the children who had lost their families, who had no place to go. He approached the old man in the village, asking if he could take care of those who had nowhere else to go. But the old man sadly apologized, saying there were too many of them, and he couldn't take care of them all. Afterward, he bid farewell to Itami and the soldiers and left. The villagers followed him, saying their goodbyes to the soldiers as they left. Everyone was very emotional, especially Itami and Eri. When the last of the villagers had gone, Itami turned around to find a group of children, the elf, Lele, and Kato standing there. They were the only ones left with no place to go. Itami tried to reassure them, speaking enthusiastically, saying, "Let's head to Arnest," to lift their spirits. Eri laughed and told him he was very kind-hearted, while Rory gazed at him, clearly infatuated. Itami then led them all towards Arnest. The next day, the fairy is sleeping in the carriage, dreaming about what happened to her. We learn that a few days ago, life was going normally in the fairy's village, whose name is revealed to be Luna, until her father suddenly rushes in and tells her that a dragon is about to attack the village, and they must escape quickly. But before they can leave, the dragon attacks the village and begins destroying it as usual. Her father grabs her quickly and throws her into the well to protect her from the fire. This is how we learn that she was the only survivor while the rest of the village perished. Shortly after, Pina and her squad are in a different location, eating and discussing the people of Kota who fled their village. Pina's team is on a secret mission, heading to Arnest to carry out Emperor Molt's orders and spy on the enemy army's movements. While they talk, a girl working in the area, who turns out to be one of the villagers who fled Kota because of the dragon, starts recounting her story to the crowd about how the dragon attacked and how the soldiers helped her. As soon as one of Pina's team members hears this, she gives the girl some money to get more details. The girl eagerly accepts the money and describes the soldiers and their weapons, which she likens to magical tools they use in combat. She continues talking about their bravery without stopping. The next day, Itami and the remaining villagers from Kota finally reach the military base in Arnest. The villagers are amazed when they see it, not believing their eyes at the sight of the buildings and the area. They are overjoyed. However, one of the officers at the base has a different view. He takes Itami to his office and scolds him for bringing the villagers without informing him first. But Itami plays dumb and pretends he didn't know it was forbidden, leaving the officer with no choice but to accept the situation. The officer writes a report on the incident and sends Lieutenant Yanagita to deliver it to General Hazama. Surprisingly, Hazama welcomes the idea, saying it's a good opportunity to learn more about the locals and understand their lifestyle and language better. He orders that the Kota refugees be provided with whatever they need. Yanagita returns to Itami's officer and informs him that Hazama approved the presence of the villagers, relieving the officer. He assigns Itami the responsibility of taking care of them. Itami is thrilled and thanks the officer before heading out to assign tasks to his team to prepare accommodations for the villagers. Later, Yanagita asks Itami for a private talk, so Itami leaves his team and follows Yanagita to the roof. There, Yanagita explains to Itami about the lands beyond the gate, describing them as a treasure they must protect, full of resources and minerals that could sustain the world for years. He also tells Itami that international tensions are rising over the gate, as every country wants a piece of the lands inside. Yanagita then asks Itami if he thinks these lands are worth fighting for. Itami responds that he hasn't done much other than bring some villagers along. Yanagita interrupts him, explaining that Itami needs to be aware of the bigger picture, as a war could break out between Japan and the rest of the world over the gate. If that happens, their only option may be for the entire nation to enter the gate and live in that world. He also tells Itami that soon he will have the freedom to make decisions, so he needs to think carefully and understand the gravity of his actions. This makes Itami feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders, and he becomes worried about whether he can handle it. After their conversation, Itami rejoins his team and has each villager introduce themselves. Kato and Lily start, followed by Rory, until it's Luna's turn. Luna, still sad and embarrassed, speaks up, which Arya notices and feels sympathetic toward her. When they finish, Itami motivates them, saying they'll start building their homes today. He takes them to the area where they'll construct their houses. Lily is curious about the materials they're using and comments to Kato, but Kato doesn't pay much attention and walks away. So, Lily approaches Luna, but Luna seems lost in thought. Lily asks what's wrong, and Luna shares how she wishes her father could see all of this, and how impressed he would have been if he were alive. Lily tries to comfort her but doesn't get the chance because she smells food coming from a distance, so she follows the scent. She arrives at the kitchen, where a soldier chef explains the different dishes and how he's preparing them. When the food is ready, he places it on the table. Itami invites everyone to start eating, and Kato is the first to try the food. He's amazed by how good it tastes and can't believe it. He's surprised that Lily hasn't started eating yet, so he tells her to hurry before the food runs out. But Lily is too fascinated by the food and the Japanese culture, imitating their every move, even how they eat. 2 days later, Pina and her squad are on their way to Arnest when they learn that one of the commanders from the Allied forces is still alive. Pina decides to visit the commander and question him, but is shocked to discover it's King Duran. She feels sorry for him when she sees that his arms and legs have been amputated from the war, and he's in a terrible condition. At first, she hesitates to ask him about what happened, but eventually, she asks about the war and how they were defeated. Duran tells her everything from beginning to end, revealing that the Empire betrayed them and refused to fight alongside them because their plan was to eliminate the surrounding kingdoms. Pina is visibly shocked by his words. He tells her to go to Arnest, where she'll understand everything on her own. She listens to his advice and continues on her way to Arnest, deep in thought about what Duran said. Back in Arnest, the villagers are adjusting to their new life, and everyone seems happy except for Luna, who remains fearful. She worries about what will happen happen if the army leaves them behind or abandons them, and she's scared to get too comfortable. Lily, now dressed like a soldier and looking intimidating, arrives and asks Luna and Rory to come with her to a location. They agree and follow her to a site filled with dead dragons from the last battle between the Japanese army and the Allied forces. Luna is shocked when she sees them, knowing how valuable dragon skin is in their world. Lily assures her that even if the army abandons them, they can make a fortune selling the dragon skins and live off the wealth. They begin collecting a large amount of dragon skin and ask Itami to take them to a city called Italica to sell it. Itami agrees and prepares the carriage. Kurata is annoyed and tells Itami he doesn't want to go, but Itami convinces him that it's a good opportunity to learn about trade in these areas. Rory and Lily get into the carriage, but Luna is hesitant and doesn't want to leave, fearing the unknown. Lily and Arya reassure her, promising they'll stay by her side and won't leave her. Luna finally feels at ease and joins them, and they all head to Italica. On the way, Itami notices smoke coming from a distance, and when he focuses, he sees that it's coming from Italica. He feels uneasy, sensing something is wrong, so he tells his team to stay alert and secure the path until they arrive. Meanwhile, in the city, Pina and her team are fighting off a large group of men. After Pina finishes them all, she's very angry because she thought they were part of the enemy army, which is the Japanese army, but it turns out there's some remaining forces from the coalition army that survived the war and are now trying to take control of Italica. Pina yells at everyone, frustrated, and then heads to her room in the Italica palace. One of her servants enters and asks if they really had to fight, suggesting there might have been another way. Pina, feeling confused, replies that she doesn't know, but wishes she could find another way to restore peace and stability to the world without anyone dying. Later, another servant brings her food, but it's a small portion. Pina asks why the food is so little, and the servant explains that due to the war, there are no longer enough resources or food, and there's a budget deficit. This situation saddens Pina as she sees the state of the people. She goes to bed and starts reminiscing about her childhood, when she used to line up all her friends and pretend they were knights protecting the kingdom. Back then, they were trained by a man named Gray, who helped Pina and trained her for years until she formed the team she had always dreamed of, her current squad. We learn that her father, King Molt, used to belittle her, and even when she formed her team and went to him to assign them to the royal guard, he didn't take it seriously and assigned them as honor guards, as if they didn't matter. This deeply hurt Pina, and now she sees this as her only chance to prove to him that she can achieve something, but unfortunately, she feels like it's slipping away. The servant suddenly throws water on Pina to wake her up because she was sleeping too deeply. Her assistant then enters and tells her that strange and dangerous-looking people are outside the city gates, and she's needed to decide whether to let them in. Pina rushes to find out who they are. When she sees military vehicles, she's unsure if they're enemies, allies, or something else. So, she orders the vehicles to stop. Lele and Luna then step out. Afterward, Rory gets out of the vehicle, and the moment Pina sees her, she realizes they are not bandits or enemies because she knows that the famous Rory would never ally herself with enemies. So, Pina assumes they're allies coming to help, and she happily opens the city gate with all her might just as she's about to welcome them. But then, Itami falls to the ground, and the girls start scolding Pina because when she opened the gate, she accidentally hit Itami, knocking him out. The girls try to wake him up, and once he regains consciousness, they continue scolding Pina. One of Pina's team members steps in and tells them to show respect to the princess, and everyone falls silent. Pina, trying to divert attention from the situation, takes them on a tour of the palace and starts telling them about the story of Italica. She explains that some time ago, the ruler of Italica passed away. He had 3 daughters, 2 older ones and the youngest. The 2 older daughters got married, so the rule was supposed to go to the youngest daughter. The 2 older sisters started fighting over who would be the guardian of their little sister, so one of them could hold power until she came of age. Due to their conflicts, Italica's situation became difficult, security weakened, and the city became a target for anyone trying to take it. That's why Pina rushed to the city as soon as she heard someone was attacking it. Their conversation ends when they reach the room of Italica's queen, Mui, who turns out to be a little girl no older than 11. Everyone is shocked when they see her. Pina understands all their questions from the expressions on their faces, so she explains that she is currently managing all the state affairs on Mui's behalf until she's a bit older. Out of kindness, Itami offers to help Pina and confesses that he is also considered her enemy. Pina thinks for a moment, then agrees, telling him to secure the southern gate because she expects another attack from the remaining coalition forces that attacked the city 2 days ago. Itami then prepares his team to secure the southern gate. As they work, Pina and one of her team members observe them. The team member asks Pina if she's sure about what she's doing and if she truly trusts these people. Pina responds that she has no other choice, and as for trust, she's forced to do this, even though they are enemies, to protect Italica. She also hints that she has a plan. Later, Itami gathers his entire team at the southern gate. One of his team members approaches him and asks the same question, whether he's sure about what he's doing. Itami explains that he realized Pina set them up as bait because of their small numbers. When the enemy arrives and sees the limited defense at the southern gate, they'll attack it first. By then, Pina will be at the eastern gate, so once the enemies breach the southern gate, Pina will meet them there and finish them off. Itami tells his team they have to follow through with this plan and asks them to trust him. Rory then asks him why he's helping the imperial princess, who is technically their enemy. He tells her the first reason is to protect the innocent people in the city, and the second is that he wants to convince the princess of the idea of reconciliation and stopping the war. Rory becomes more impressed by him and encourages him. On the other side, at the eastern gate, the enemy attacks instead of the southern gate, completely disrupting Pina's plan. To make matters worse, the enemy has summoned spirits, making the situation incredibly difficult at the gate. The enemy is strong and numerous, taking out many of the defenders and entering the city. People begin asking Pina about Itami and his team's whereabouts. Pina, overwhelmed and feeling everything slipping away, tells them with a heavy heart that Itami will not come, even if she gives him the signal, because she used them as bait at first, expecting the enemy to eliminate them. Meanwhile, we return to Itami at the southern gate, where he's still waiting for a signal from Pina to come and help, but she hasn't sent anything yet. Itami gets frustrated and contacts Commander Zama, requesting immediate support and aircraft. He prepares his team to move toward the eastern gate. In the middle of all this, Itami notices Rory is in pain, so he asks Lele about the reason. Lele explains that Rory is a reaper, and the souls of the dead pass through her like a gateway. Itami goes to Rory and tells her to hang on a bit longer, but suddenly, Rory leaps from the gate and runs off quickly. Lele is about to follow her, but Itami stops her and says they'll head to the gate now, and they'll probably find her there. He signals his team to move. At the eastern gate, the enemy commander finishes off one of Pina's soldiers and throws his body in front of everyone, declaring that he will take revenge on the kingdom, and Italica is just the first step in his conquest of the Empire Arnest. Itami receives word from Commander Zama that the aircraft team is 5 minutes away, which reassures him. In the aircraft team, the soldiers are in high spirits, playing music to get themselves in the mood for battle. When they arrive, they start dropping bombs on the enemy calmly and without mercy. At the same time, Itami's team and Rory arrive at the eastern gate. Rory begins violently taking out the enemy soldiers, but there are too many for her alone. Some of Itami's team goes to help her, and within minutes, Itami orders everyone to move away from the gate and instructs the aircraft team to fire a missile to quickly finish off the enemies. As the countdown begins, everyone starts running. The missile hits the gate, destroying everything and leaving no trace of the enemies. The battle that took Pina hours to fight, Itami finishes in minutes, leaving everyone astonished, especially Pina and her team. After the battle is over and things calm down, Itami and the soldiers help the wounded, and the townspeople thank them for everything they've done. A little later, Pina talks to her team, feeling hopeless, and tells them they lost the battle and that Itami's team, who will remain their enemy, was the real victor. But she also says they must thank them, because if it weren't for them, they all would have been captured and enslaved. Pina and her team gather to thank Itami and his squad for what they did. Itami seizes the opportunity to request something from Pina, a truce, but only between Italica and Arnest so they can travel in and out of the city freely. Pina agrees, then later talks to one of her team members, both of them surprised that this was Itami's only demand, as they didn't ask to control the city or take anything from it. The next day, Itami's team begins packing their things and loading up the vehicles to leave. Along the way, they pass by a merchant, and Lele and Luna go inside to sell the dragon hide they had collected. When the merchant tells them the price, they are both shocked and thrilled because they're about to be rich. They leave, happy, and get back into the military vehicles to continue their journey. At this point, Itami is extremely tired and just wants to sleep, eagerly waiting to reach Arnest so he can rest properly. But of course, something has to happen. Nothing ever comes easily to him. He sees a group of girls on horses, dressed like knights, riding quickly toward them. They stop all the vehicles, and one of the girls starts questioning a soldier about where he's headed. He tells her he's going to Arnest, and she immediately realizes that they are the enemies who took over Arnest. She gets angry and draws her sword. Itami quickly intervenes, trying to calm her down, but she becomes even even more furious and slaps him across the face. At this point, Itami realizes his day won't end peacefully, so he orders his team to run quickly and leave him behind. They follow his orders and flee. They come back unnoticed to see where they took Itami. Night falls, and we find Itami back in Italica, realizing that those girls are knights under Pina. As soon as they arrive and take Itami into the palace, beaten and exhausted, Pina is shocked and scolds the knights for what they've done. She tells them they've violated the truce she had with Itami, which could spark a war. Pina and one of her team rush to try to wake Itami up, but there's no use. He's been beaten so badly that he's unconscious, to the point where they think he might be dead. Pina gets furious and wants to punish the knights severely. On the other side, Itami's team is watching the palace from a distance, worried that Itami might be dead or seriously harmed, as what happened to him on the road wasn't minor. They start thinking of a plan to get Itami out without anyone noticing. They agree that Luna will go to the guards at the gate and cast a spell to make them fall asleep so the team can sneak in. Luna and Rory head to the gate, and the guards let them in without issue since Rory, being famous, is with them. Once inside, Luna begins her spell, and soon enough, all the guards are asleep. Itami's team sneaks into the palace. Inside, Itami wakes up and realizes he's back in Italica. He begins to recall what happened, and just then, Pina's maid enters, apologizing for what occurred. She tells him the knights responsible for his beating were punished severely and begs him to forgive them and not take action against the kingdom, as they cannot withstand the strength of his team. Itami reassures her, saying she needn't worry, as he won't do anything to harm the kingdom. Suddenly, a girl named Mamina, who is in the room, hears someone moving under the window. The maid tells her it's probably Itami's team and orders her to go check. If it's them, she's to bring them up. If not, she should take them out. Itami is surprised and asks the maid how Mamina could hear anything. The maid introduces him to the girls who will be helping him while he recovers. Mamina is a humanoid rabbit, Persia is from the feline race, Momo is human, but Oria is a Medusa, meaning she's also human but with snakes for hair, and extremely dangerous. As soon as Itami hears this, he starts thinking they would be great in his army and considers recruiting them. Suddenly, Itami's team enters the room, worried about him, only to find him being treated like a VIP, completely unbothered by what's happening. Meanwhile, Pina talks to the knights who attacked Itami and tells one of them that she must apologize to Itami and make him forget what happened. Otherwise, war will break out because of her, and the empire will be wiped out in seconds. The knight responds that she'll do whatever it takes for the empire. The knight considers getting closer to Itami and goes to his room. But when she enters, she finds the room full of people laughing and paying no attention to her, especially Itami, who didn't even notice her arrival. Furious that she's being ignored, she loses control and slaps him again. Pina is mortified when she finds out what happened and wants to bury herself out of embarrassment. She apologizes profusely to Itami and offers to let him stay in the palace another day until he recovers. But Itami tells her that he has a meeting with the commander and needs to leave. Pina gets worried that what happened might reach the commander, who could use the situation as a pretext to start a war, so she starts thinking of what to do and eventually tells Itami that she'll go with him to meet the commander. Itami reluctantly agrees, and the next day, Pina brings the knight who hit Itami and they ride in the military vehicle. They arrive quickly, and Pina is surprised by the speed of the vehicles. She's also shocked when she sees the soldiers' training and the weapons they have, thinking it must be magic. Lele explains to her that these are normal weapons, not magic, and shows her how they work, explaining that this is why the Empire stands no chance against the army. Pina understands her point and knows deep down that she's right, which is why she came to Arnest to calm things down. Later, Pina enters the office and sits down with Zama and Yanagita. Lele is with them to translate, as she's become obsessed with Japanese culture and learned the language quickly. Zama asks Pina about the terms of the treaty they had made, saying that since they violated the first term so quickly, they might need to rewrite it and make some changes. Pina quickly responds, saying no, and that what happened was a mistake and won't happen again. Yanagita then joins the conversation, laughing as he asks why they beat Itami like that, wanting to know the details. Pina gets visibly nervous, and Zama changes the subject, thanking Pina for coming and saying he's busy before leaving. Afterward, Itami surprises Luna by telling her she'll be the official representative of their world in Japan, and that they will go together, bringing Lele along to translate for them. They'll stay for 2 days. Luna gets excited and agrees, but Rory and Kuda overhear and tell Itami they want to go too. They pester him until he gives in. That night, Pina is in her room with the knight who attacked Itami. The knight asks her if a war could really happen because of her actions. Pina tells her no, because if that were the case, they wouldn't have agreed to take them to Arnest or treat them kindly. She also tells her that she wants to understand how these people think so she can deal with them better. The next day, Itami, Luna, and the others are getting ready to go to to Japan, but one of the team members is surprised to see Rory coming with them. Itami tells him that Rory might set them on fire before they even enter the gate if she doesn't come, and they all laugh. Then, Yanagita arrives in a car, surprising everyone by bringing Pina and the knight along. He tells Itami that Pina will also be going to Japan with them. Itami protests, saying that's too much and he can't keep an eye on all of them. Yanagita tells him he's already gotten approval from Zama and the Japanese officials, and that they're excited about the idea. He teases Itami, telling him to take good care of them and show them around Japan before leaving. Then everyone enters through the gate and is shocked by the appearance and size of the buildings and the number of people present. Bainia can't believe her eyes or how they even dared to wage war against these people. Then Itami comes and interrupts their amazement, taking them to a place where he needs to collect some important files. There, he encounters a man named Koma, who introduces himself to Itami and tells him that he is from the intelligence service and will be responsible for them throughout their stay in Japan. However, Koma seems somewhat suspicious. He brings up all of Itami's history before joining the army and says he doesn't understand how a failure like him became a hero in front of everyone. Itami doesn't feel comfortable around him and doesn't give much importance to what he says. Afterward, Itami takes Luna, Lele, and the rest to show them the city. They're all very excited, and he takes them to a clothing store, where he makes Luna wear something more appropriate for her new role as the official spokesperson, fitting for her public appearances. Once done, he takes them out to eat, as they're all hungry, and orders some Japanese food. Bainia is particularly excited to try the food, but the moment she sees that it's raw, she feels uneasy and doesn't want to eat. But as she's starving, she has to try it. The moment she takes her first bite, she's amazed by the taste and ends up cleaning her plates. Then, it's time for the conference where Luna is supposed to speak. They all go and get in the car, heading to the venue. Everyone gets out except for Bainia, who is taken to a different place to meet the minister's assistant. Once there, she's introduced to everyone and begins speaking with the assistant, who tells Bainia that they have over 6,000 prisoners of war and are willing to release them under certain conditions that will be discussed. They also explain to her how their political system works so she can understand how to negotiate with them. Meanwhile, Itami, Luna, Lele, and Rory have entered the conference. The event is being broadcast live, with everyone watching, even world leaders. The conference begins, and a non-Japanese looking member of parliament, possibly from a human rights organization, asks Itami about the people who died during the dragon attack when the villagers were evacuating Koda village. Itami calmly explains what happened, saying that there are always casualties in such situations, and they were fighting a real dragon, not some toy. Moreover, the dragon's hide wasn't affected by regular bullets. The parliament member is clearly irritated by his calm and logical response. She then tries asking Lele if she experienced any violence or harassment from the army. Lele responds with a firm no. The parliament member keeps trying to rephrase the question in different ways, hoping to get Lele to say something negative about the Japanese army, but Lele continues to answer confidently. Then it's Luna's turn, and everyone is captivated by her beauty and her elvish ears. Someone asks if her ears are real, and Luna wiggles them, astonishing everyone, even those watching at home. The same parliament member starts asking Luna similar questions about the army's treatment, but Luna answers in a way that shows how well the Japanese army treated them. Next, it's Rory's turn. Upon seeing Rory, the parliament member thinks she has found someone to exploit. Seeing Rory in black, she assumes someone close to her died and asks if that person died during the dragon incident. Rory is confused by the question. The parliament member clarifies, asking if Rory is wearing black because someone died in the dragon attack. She raises her voice, trying to emotionally manipulate the audience, implying that the soldiers were selfish for allowing so many people to die while saving themselves, as none of the soldiers perished. She even starts calling the soldiers selfish. Rory is silent for a moment before standing up and yelling at her so loudly that it almost deafens everyone in the room. She calls the parliament member stupid, saying that she wasn't there and didn't witness the soldiers' efforts to defend the people or everything they did for them. The parliament member becomes furious at Rory's words and demands she show respect for her elders. Rory gets angry as well and is about to take her soul, but Itami intervenes, calming Rory down and telling the parliament member that Rory is actually the oldest person in the room, over 1,000 years old. Everyone is shocked, and Luna adds that she is 250 years old, leaving them even more astonished. When they look at Lele, she tells them she's 15, which brings them back to reality, relieved that someone is normal. Sensing they are getting nowhere, the parliament members are exhausted and decide to end the conference. Koma pretends that Itami and the group are getting into cars and leaving, as he expects an attempt to kidnap them by some foreign power. His instincts are right, as the cars are hijacked, but they are empty. That's because Itami, Rory, Luna, and Lele took the subway like regular people. But suddenly, the train stops, and Itami suspects it was done on purpose. He gets everyone off the train, and just then, someone tries to steal Rory's weapon. Koma prevents it, and while trying to pick up the weapon to hand it to Rory, his back breaks under its weight, and he's rushed to the hospital. They wave goodbye to him from a distance, and then Itami takes everyone to a woman's house, bringing food with him. As soon as the woman sees the food, she starts eating as if she hasn't eaten in a year. Itami introduces her to the group, telling them that this is Risa, his ex-wife. The shock is so great that their screams are heard all over Japan, and they comment on what he said, saying, how could Risa possibly be his ex-wife? Because at that time, she looked disheveled and didn't seem like someone who could be the wife of a hero like Itami. Itami gets irritated by the subject and asks Risa if they can stay at her place. Risa agrees and lets them in. While there, Itami explains to Risa what happened, saying they suspect someone is targeting them. He continues speaking with one of his team members, Tomita, and tells him that he suspects Koma might be involved and that he could be a spy within the team. Tomita asks what they should do, and Itami says he'll wait to see if anything else happens. If something occurs while Koma is in the hospital, it means he's not the spy and that someone else is monitoring them since Koma doesn't know they're at Risa's place. When Risa overhears their conversation, she yells at Itami for putting her in such a dangerous situation, gets fed up with him, and goes to sleep. The next morning, Itami wakes up full of energy, wakes everyone else, and says they should all go out. Risa gets excited and insists they go shopping for new clothes, and Lily and Luna get enthusiastic about the idea too. Meanwhile, Pina wants to visit the library to learn more about Japanese culture. Itami suggests that Pina go with Tomita to the library while the girls go to the mall with Risa. They agree to meet up later at a surprise location Itami has planned, which gets everyone excited except Rory. Rory says she doesn't want to go anywhere. The girls try to convince her to come and buy new clothes, but she's not interested and prefers her current style. After much persuasion, she finally agrees. However, as soon as Rory sees the dresses at the store, she goes crazy for them and starts buying everything in sight. The same happens with Pina, who is fascinated by the sheer number of books at the library. As for Itami, he goes to meet Kano, the Minister of Defense, who considers Itami like a son and deeply cares for him. Kano and Itami agree that the group should go to the planned location because they suspect an abduction attempt and want to find out who's behind it. Kano assures Itami that the area will be well secured before they arrive, and Itami agrees not to worry. Later, Itami picks up Lily, Pina, Rory, and Luna and takes them to a place called the Hot Springs, a spot like a jacuzzi. Everyone loves the location and spends time swimming and playing, unaware of the danger surrounding them. As Kano had suspected, an armed group surrounds the area, planning to kidnap everyone there. Fortunately, the well-trained Japanese forces securing the location manage to hold off the attackers until the armed group gets frustrated and contacts their leader to cancel the operation. The leader then informs their president to get the final decision. It turns out this president is the President of the United States. He orders them not to cancel the operation and contacts the Japanese Prime Minister, sending him highly sensitive documents that could be used against Japan, including evidence of bribery and corruption involving officials. The US president demands that the group from the gate be taken to America for a while in exchange for the documents. Reluctantly, the Japanese Prime Minister agrees but tells him that Japan will withdraw its forces from the location, leaving the rest of the operation to the Americans. However, he warns that if the group they're trying to abduct escapes, it will be the US's responsibility, not Japan's. The US president accepts the terms. At that moment, the Japanese Prime Minister orders Kano to cancel the mission immediately. Kano is shocked and unsure of what to say but ultimately has to follow orders, withdrawing Japanese forces from the area. American forces begin to approach the area, but suddenly they encounter two other forces in front of them, and they all start attacking each other. When Rory sees this, she can't contain herself and joins in, finishing off everyone present. One of the American team members calls his commander and tells him that Russian and Chinese forces had the same idea as them and attacked the location as well, urging that they need to retreat immediately. But before they can leave, Rory finishes off all of them, and the area is filled with bodies, terrifying everyone. Itami shouts at them to gather their things and move quickly. They follow his orders and start preparing to leave. As they rush out, they find one of the American team members in his car. Lele uses magic to put him to sleep, and they steal the car. Itami starts thinking about where they can go to be safe, and during his conversation with Tomita, Bania asks why they're running and from whom. At that point, everyone agrees with her and wants to know the reason. Itami goes silent for a moment, then suddenly explodes, saying he doesn't know. One of the women on his team pulls out her gun and points it at his head, demanding, "What do you mean you don't know?" Tomita calms her down, making her lower her weapon. As she She's not thinking straight and everyone is on edge. Then Bania speaks up, saying that she thinks she understands what's happening. She explains that ever since she arrived, things have changed multiple times, and just as Japan loves the idea of peace, there must be other empires that despise the idea and want to eliminate it. She looks to Itami to confirm her theory, but Itami remains silent, not saying a word. Meanwhile, the American president contacts a man named Garaham, who had suggested the use of important documents to stall Japan. He yells at Garaham, demanding that he capture the group from the other world, threatening that if he doesn't, he'll make him regret his entire life. Later, Itami sits with Risa and Tomita to discuss a plan. Itami says that tomorrow morning is the last day for Lele, Luna, and Rory, and before they leave, they plan to stop at a place called Ginza to take pictures while laying flowers for the victims of the war between Japan and the Empire. He's worried because it will be a prime opportunity for someone to kidnap them. Risa suggests that if they gather a huge crowd, it would be hard for anyone to do anything to them in such a public place. Itami thinks it's a good idea and asks Risa to gather as many people as possible at Ginza. Risa spreads the word through social media and magazines, asking people to come and bid farewell to the girls before they return to their world. The event goes viral, and the next day, Ginza is packed with people to the point where there's no room to walk. Everyone is talking about Lele, Rory, and Luna, who have gained many fans. The news outlets can't keep up with covering them, or with the sudden resignation of the Prime Minister on the same day, with no one knowing the reason. When Itami and the girls arrive, they don't know how they're going to move through the crowd. Meanwhile, Garaham is also there, watching them. As it turns out, he's an agent working for America, waiting for the right moment to kidnap the girls. However, Koma shows up and introduces himself to Garaham, pulling out his entire background in front of him. He tells him that he knows he's an agent, pointing out the other agents from Russia and China as well. Garaham is left speechless, not knowing what to do now that he's been exposed. Koma leaves him and contacts Itami, telling him that he has identified all the agents and the situation is now secure. Itami tells the girls to get out of the car and shows them where they need to place the flowers, urging them to finish quickly and leave. But Lele and Luna are too shy in front of the massive crowd and hesitate to get out. Rory encourages them by getting out first, and they follow her, doing as Itami instructed. After they finish, they all head to the gate, where Karada arrives to escort them back to Arnest. He's happy to see them again, but finds them all collapsed on the ground from exhaustion, not paying attention to him or what he's saying. They return to Arnest, and everyone is happy with the trip, having fallen in love with Japan, except for Itami, who thinks those 2 days were pure torture and hopes they never happen again. After returning to Arnest, Bania writes everything that happened in her diary and decides to return to the Empire to put an end to the ongoing issues and establish a comprehensive peace treaty across all borders of the world inside the gate. After about a week, exactly 5 months have passed since the war between Japan and the Empire began. Arnest has become a very safe zone, with people from other kingdoms coming and going until it turned into a bustling city full of people. Pina returns to the Empire, accompanied by a Japanese official named Koji. Negotiations and secret political dealings are ongoing between Japan and the Empire. Pina works tirelessly day and night to achieve the peace she desires between her kingdom and Japan. She works so hard that she exhausts herself, and when one of her team members talks to her about matters in the kingdom, Pina forgets what she wanted to say because of how tired she is. They urge Pina to take a break, but she refuses, saying she has an appointment with Koji and must meet him. She heads to a castle called Kaikro, where there's a banquet she and Koji are invited to. The two sit and eat together, and then Kaikro, the castle owner, enters. Pina tells Koji that Kaikro is a member of their senate and that he is the best person to start discussing the treaty with. She explains to Koji that since the Empire's army was defeated the first time, the senate has split into 2 factions. One faction is reorganizing the army to launch another attack on Japan, while the other seeks peace, wanting to dethrone King Molt and establish a new ruling system. The latter faction is already on their side and doesn't need much convincing. They decide to focus now on the faction that still wants war. They approach Kaikro, and Koji introduces himself. Kaikro asks about Koji's country, and Koji talks about Japan, presenting him with some gifts. Kaikro is impressed by the gifts and asks Koji to continue talking about his homeland. Koji mentions that his country is currently at war with the Empire, but Kaikro interrupts him, asking everyone to leave so he can speak privately with Koji. Koji smiles because this is exactly what he intended from the start, to have a private conversation with Kaikro. Once everyone leaves, Kaikro gets angry, shouting that it's forbidden for him to deal with the enemy. He warns Pina that if anyone finds out, they won't be spared, not even her as a princess. Koji then pulls a paper from his pocket and hands it to Kaikro. When Kaikro reads it, he sees the name of his nephew written on it. Koji tells him that his nephew is one of their prisoners, and and that he's willing to release him if Kaikro agrees to the peace terms. Without hesitation, Kaikro agrees. Pina takes advantage of this and asks Kaikro to accompany her to meet the Dasi family, a highly influential family in the empire. Kaikro agrees and promises to go with her. Meanwhile, in Arnest, Itami and Tomita patrol the streets, happy with the development in the area and how people are fascinated by the Japanese items now available there. On their way, they encounter Rory arguing with someone, chasing him out of the city for being a thief. It turns out Rory has also taken up patrolling the city like Itami, ensuring the safety of the town and its people. Later, Itami takes Rory to join Tomita and Arya. They sit, eat, and chat. They see Luna walking by, imagining her late father and talking to him. Arya suggests they convince Luna that her father has passed away, but Itami objects, getting upset. He says Luna might break down if they tell her, and if that happens, Arya won't be there to care for her because they'll eventually leave Arnest. Arya gets hurt by his words and walks away. Tomita follows her to ensure she's not left alone. Rory tells Itami he needs to apologize to Arya because he spoke harshly and upset her. Itami replies that he's not used to being kind to everyone and that's just his personality. Itami and Rory sit drinking until a fairy named Yao enters the place, angrily scolding Itami for letting a little girl drink with him. She's referring to Rory, whom she doesn't know, mistaking her for a child. Rory plays along, pretending to be a child forced to drink by Itami to get back at him for upsetting Arya. Yao, enraged, draws her sword to deal with Itami. Realizing things have escalated, Itami jumps out of the window and runs, with Rory following him. When Yao sees that Itami has fled, she doesn't chase him. Instead, she sits in the place and asks about the soldiers who fought the dragon, saying she needs their help for a mission. She knows they are good people and is confident they will assist her. She presents a large jewel as a reward for the soldiers if they agree to help. The people around her offer to help instead to claim the jewel, but Yao insists she needs the soldiers. When asked why she needs them, Yao reveals she wants their help to eliminate the fire dragon. Everyone falls silent, knowing they can't assist her with such a dangerous task. After some time, Yao leaves and heads to the forest, where she sleeps briefly and dreams of her family and village being attacked and burned by the dragon's fire. She wakes up to the sound of 2 army planes flying overhead. Seeing the planes fills Yao with hope that she has found the soldiers. She starts remembering her loved ones and breaks down in tears. We go back in time to see Yao gathered with the elders and wise leaders of the fairies in a cave. They assign her the task of summoning the soldiers to eliminate the dragon. They tell her she is the best choice for the mission, being skilled with the sword and capable of negotiating with others. They give her a large jewel to use as a lure to convince the soldiers to join her. They also try to console her after the loss of all her friends and fiancé at the hands of the dragon. Yao, however, says she doesn't need consolation and assures them she is capable of fulfilling the mission. She vows to bring the soldiers to defeat the dragon and avenge those who were lost. Now, after Yao spots the soldiers' planes, she is overjoyed and runs toward the place where they departed. She finally reaches the military base and encounters 2 soldiers at the gate. She tells them everything about the dragon, but they simply exchange confused glances, unable to understand her. She begins to think of what to do and recalls Itami, noticing that he wore the same uniform as the soldiers. Realizing he must be one of them and capable of understanding her, she decides to search for him and talk to him. Yao starts asking people about him, but everyone she approaches tries to exploit her. Some want to rob her, while others attempt to scam her. Each time, she loses her temper and deals with them harshly for trying to take advantage of her without offering real help. By coincidence, Yao enters a shop selling Japanese goods. There, she finds the girl in charge of the shop speaking Japanese and selling items to 2 soldiers. She rushes to the girl, begging her to come along and speak to the soldiers for her. However, the girl is busy and refuses to go but gives Yao a book, something like a dictionary, to help her communicate a little. At the same time, 2 more soldiers enter the shop. As soon as they see Yao, they recognize her as the girl who has been reported for several violations since arriving in the city. They tell her she needs to come with them. The shopkeeper translates this for Yao, and Yao mistakenly believes they will listen to her and understand her request. Overjoyed, she agrees to go with them. In the forest, Lele is training with Kuda in magic. It turns out Lele is enhancing her magic using an alchemy book. She believes that science in their world is equivalent to magic in this one. However, a soldier interrupts their training and asks Lele to come along, as they need her for translation. Lele accompanies them and finds Yao imprisoned, accused of theft. They ask Lele to translate what Yao says in her defense. Lele sits with Yao and asks her to tell her story and clarify whether or not she stole anything. Yao asks who she is, and Lele explains that she's a translator who will convey her words to the soldiers. As Yao begins to speak, another soldier enters and informs Lele that Yao has been cleared of the theft charges, as the accuser was found to be lying. They no longer need a translation. Lele is about to leave, but Yao stops her, pleading with her to listen. She explains her need for help and tells her story about the dragon. Lele assures her that she will convey everything to the army and seek their help. Yao thanks her sincerely. Lele then takes Yao to meet Commander Zama, relaying Yao's request. Zama refuses to help her, explaining that her village lies beyond the Empire's borders. Assisting her would mean crossing into another nation's territory, which could be seen as an act of war. Yao pleads with him, but Zama remains firm in his decision and orders young Ida to escort her to her destination. Yao sets out with young Ida and Lele, disheartened and hopeless. Her despair moves young Ida, who speaks aloud as though to himself, saying that if Itami were here, he would likely have found a way to help. Lele then suggests they go to a quiet place, and young Ida takes them to a restaurant. Lele orders something for Yao to calm her down. While there, Yao overhears soldiers talking about Itami and his bravery. Lele also tells Yao a bit about him. After finishing their meal, Lele tells Yao about a place, like a hotel, that the army has set up where she can stay. On the way, Yao keeps thinking about Itami until they reach the hotel, where she meets Luna, who manages the place. Luna, excited to see Yao as a fellow fairy, immediately prepares a room for her. Meanwhile, Itami is on a mission. A new official from the ministry arrives in the Empire to join Koji and Pina. During this time, Pina meets with Itami, and they talk about their journey to Japan, reminiscing about their memories there. Afterward, Itami bids farewell to Pina and joins his team. Together, they reflect on their experiences, laugh with each other, and watch the Empire as they walk. They hope for peace in the world so they won't ever have to harm or destroy the beauty of nature that they now admire before them.